A lot of reasons why you might not want more access to the ballot and to do things to help it make it easier for people to vote. Those reasons range from you don't want more people voting, you are anti-democratic, you feel that your chances of winning are higher if you don't have many people vote. One of the mechanisms that we use in this country to increase voting participation are drop boxes, so that people don't have to drop off their their ballot down at the registrar's office. Marco Rubio, in his debate last night with Val Demings, had a very, very unique and interesting and novel concern about drop boxes.
Rick, I know you have another question.
This question is for you, Senator Rubio. In January, you wrote in the Federalist that Democrats' push for voting rights is about, again, quote, exaggerated problems and imaginary fears, unquote. Can you give us...
Pause it for 1 second. I just want you to I want to just flag that, that point right there. What was it? Imaginary problems and made up fears? I just want you to let's go back a little bit, because it is an important premise to this question.
Another question.
This question is for you, Senator Rubio. In January, you wrote in the Federalist that Democrats' push for voting rights is about, again, quote, exaggerated problems and imaginary fears, unquote. Can you give us specifics on what you mean by that?
Sure. It's never been easier to vote.
It's
never been easier to vote. It's never been easier to vote. In Florida, you can now vote by mail for any reason. You can vote, for example, 10 days before the election. You can vote on Election Day. In Georgia, which they claim to be the place that was suppressing all the votes, you had record African-American voter turnout. To compare what's happening now to the Jim Crow era, where people were literally murdered, where people were forced to take poll taxes and pay poll taxes and literacy tests, what are we talking about here? We're talking about this. We're talking about, number one, when you go vote, you show an ID. I have been a Hispanic man my entire life. I'm a minority. I've never felt like producing an ID disadvantages my ability to vote. Everyone has an ID. You can't even check into a hotel. You can't buy Sudafed at Walgreens without an ID. That's number one. Number two is you can't collect a bunch of ballots. Harvesting of ballots. Cars showing up with tons of ballots sitting in the trunk of a car. Things like that they want to force down the throat of every state in the country. We don't need that federal law imposed on every state. Florida has very good election laws, and other states have very good election laws. And the states that don't have very good election laws are the states that actually have gone in the opposite direction of weakening security for the ballot.
All right, Senator, thank you. Congressman, I want to go back to you for 60 seconds.
Florida has an election law police force, and if the laws are so wonderful, what's the need for that? Florida also eliminated the number of drop boxes from 2020. Why do that, particularly in certain areas, Senator? Your job is to make sure that every person votes. The ones who may vote for you and the ones who may not vote for you. That is your responsibility. So if it's so perfect, why the adjustments? We need to hold states accountable to make sure every person, although that scares the senator to death, has the right, the precious right, to cast their vote.
Senator.
Yeah, I'm trying to suppress the vote, and I'm wasting a lot of money telling people to go out and vote, because that's what my campaign has been all about. Number two, I've never supported any suppression effort. Listen, we've had laws in this state. How come all of a sudden a drop box is the standard by which we judge whether people are being allowed to vote or not? We didn't have drop boxes 10 years ago. We didn't have drop boxes in 2016 when the Congresswoman was first elected to Congress. We didn't have drop boxes in 2012 when Barack Obama won the state of Florida running for president. That's a method of voting that doesn't advantage one group or another. There's danger involved in drop boxes. People need to think about it. Okay, imagine if someone decides, oh, there's a drop box. I'm just going to put some explosive in it and blow it up and burn all of those ballots, and now those votes don't count at all. Okay, there is something with elections. There are two things that are very important. Number one, the count.
First off, you know why he went there is because he panicked, because he realized, like, drop boxes don't advantage one group of people or another. Oh, that's not part of the narrative, is it? And he said, like, you won without drop boxes. Oh, wait. that ruins the implication that you're doing this because you think it's something
For
that's going to make you help or you win. Well, what about bombings? Rubio also, I think, is going to introduce legislation where you can't use a pen because you don't want to stab the ballots.
Or stab a poll worker.
Stab a poll worker. Maybe there shouldn't even be polls. Because you can blow up a poll. You can blow up a polling place. That's right. This guy going around with bombs.
That would seem to like suggest mail-in voting, wouldn't it?
I mean, it seems to me. Yeah, I mean, if you think that any physical representation of the ballot, any location that's possibly bombed, I mean, should they really have gathered for this debate?
Yeah, you're really risking it.
It's sort of shocking that no one bombed this debate. I mean, you know what else is starting to concern me? This whole thing where we have mailboxes. How many of those are going to get blown up now? I mean, in all honesty, I'd be surprised now if one of I would put the odds, this is not a sure bet, but every time we've had one of these like sort of graffiti things with left is best, or, go Antifa, or, Donald Trump is bad, I'm woke, like graffiti that the right-wingers have put, it would not surprise me if we see somewhere in the country where there are drop boxes, some guy takes his cue from little Marco here and does it. That's just, I don't know, that is a pretty stunning reach. We can't have drop boxes because someone could blow them up.
And I like how he started like, it's never been easier to vote, as if that's like a self-evidently suspicious thing and not like if it was true something to be like welcomed.
Right. And as if like you're comparing it towards to a history that has put like the greatest roadblocks against people voting in a at least obviously repressive state in history. So it's a tough thing to brag about. I don't know. I'll tell you something. Rubio did not do well in this debate. I saw a couple of clips of Demings. Let's play this other clip. This is Demings going at Rubio. I think at one point she also brought out her badge. Look, I want to make this clear. Demings is not my favorite candidate. And I don't think that she has been as strong in this campaign as she could be, and I'm not a huge fan of her politics. But again, I'll take her vote in the Senate as opposed to Marco Rubio's any day of the week.
Oh, a leading light like Marco Rubio getting taken down is that's good. It's
a good thing. And he really, it is amazing about Rubio that it feels like his campaign against Trump broke him. And he's never, ever, ever really recovered.
Yeah.
Here is Demings and Rubio on guns. The one thing about Rubio in his career is he has promised to do a lot of things very publicly and then completely backed off them. One was immigration reform. This was, I don't know, 10 years ago maybe. And the other has been doing something about guns in the wake of Parkland shooting.
Question. This question goes to you, Senator. 5 days ago, the Parkland mass shooter who killed 17 people at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School avoided the death penalty. That shooter and the killer who took 8 lives at an Indiana FedEx facility last year were both 19 years old when they killed. The killers in this year's mass shootings in Buffalo and Uvalde, Texas were both 18. All used legally purchased AR-style rifles. In the nationally televised CNN town hall 3 days after the Parkland massacre, you said, quote, "If you are 18 years of age, you should not be able to buy a rifle. I will support a law that takes that right away." Would you still support that federal law?
Let me tell you why that law doesn't work and why that proposal doesn't work. We had a shooter last Thursday, tragic, in North Carolina. He was 15. Where did he get the gun? He didn't get it from a gun show. He certainly didn't buy it. He's 15 years of age. We've had shootings in the state. Pulse was a terrorist attack. A licensed security guard with a permit to carry firearms, extensive background check. The guy in Parkland, this killer, everybody knew who it was. Even before they announced who the person was, everybody in the community knew who it was because this guy had long.
All right, pause it for 1 second. I mean, just the logic of this is just absurd. This is like saying there's no point in having a speed limit. People should be able to drive 150 miles an hour on the highway or even on the city streets because somebody was driving 30 miles an hour and they got into a car accident. So why the proposal to have people to have a speed limit doesn't work?
Yeah, or like some people drive like 80 and don't get caught. So we can't have a speed limit.
It doesn't make any sense. Yeah, I mean that's the logic here. A pedestrian was killed by a car going 25 miles an hour. We don't need speed limits. It doesn't work.
Right. The question always is like, who's to say these measures will actually do anything if they're not 100% effective?
And the thing is, he must have done a lot of deep research, science research, in between the time that he was in favor of that proposal and now against it. But go ahead.
Extensive background check. The guy in Parkland, this killer, everybody knew who it was. Even before they announced who the person was, everybody in the community knew who it was because this guy had long problems. He'd been acting up for a long time and everybody knew it. And here's what happened. The sheriff did nothing about it. The school district did nothing about it because they didn't want to arrest kids and fell through the cracks. Even the FBI cracks it fell through. So that's why one of the first things I did when I got back to Washington is I sponsored a bipartisan red flag law, styled after Florida, not the crazy one they just passed, a real red flag law that would allow the police department to go before a judge and remove your guns if they can prove that you are a danger. The one they passed allows some coworker that doesn't like you to go to some liberal judge and take away your Second Amendment rights. So I think the solution to this problem is to identify these people
go to a liberal judge
and stop them
I
before they act.
want to stop you here, Senator, but before I go to Congresswoman Demings, I want to make sure that I understand that what you said in 2018 is not what you believe is the solution today.
I do not believe that.
There should not be a ban 18 or 19 or 20-year-old.
A 15-year-old just got a gun, got a shotgun.
But that's one case. I just want to make sure.
No, it's more than one case. But the one in Connecticut also involved the exact same thing.
We could do this all night, but I want to make sure that you don't support that anymore. It is an important point.
Denying the right to buy it is not going to keep them from doing it. Here's the fundamental issue. The fundamental issue is why are these kids, why are these people going out there and massacring
video games?
Because a lot of people own AR-15s and they don't kill everyone.
I understand, sir, but I want to go to Congresswoman Demings for 60 seconds.
You know, people who are the families of victims of gun violence just heard that, and they're asking themselves, what in the hell did he just say? Senator, you used the Pulse nightclub shooting as your inspiration to run again for the Senate in 2016. Pulse is in my district. And yet, you've done nothing to help address gun violence and get dangerous weapons out of the hands of dangerous people. Florida, after Parkland, after you made promises that you had no intentions on keeping to the parents of Parkland, Florida passed legislation raising the age to have an assault weapon, passed red flag laws that we've seen 7,000 plus instances where they've been used now. Our primary responsibility is the safety of Floridians. And Senator, 24 years in elected office, and you have not yet risen to that occasion. And then when asked about it, you say something that makes no sense.
All right, Congressman, thank you. Senator, 30-second rebuttal from you.
Yeah, what makes no sense is that we're going to actually pass laws that only law-abiding people will follow and criminals will continue to violate. The truth of the matter is, at the end of the day, that Americans have a Second Amendment right to protect themselves. They have, and these killers that are out there, if they're intent on killing as they are, they have found multiple ways to get a hold of weapons and cause mass destruction. Just the other day, he used a shotgun, which would have been covered by any of these restrictions. I have a bipartisan red flag law sponsored with Senator Jack Reed. But the problem is that the leftists in the Senate and in the House, like Congresswoman Demings, are against it because they want the California red flag law that allows your coworker has a grudge against you and can go to a judge and take away your guns. That I'll never support.
That's the 30. I'm going to overlook Senator-elect Demings. We're going to just blow by that.
I said Senator and I said
Congresswoman Demings.
Yeah, thank you. Look, every time we talk about responsible gun ownership and legislation that could help protect lives, you pull the Second Amendment out. My father was a gun owner. Has nothing to do with the Second Amendment. This is about taking dangerous guns out of the hands of dangerous people. And the overwhelming majority of people in our nation want us to do just that. How long will you watch people being gunned down in first grade, fourth grade, high school, college, church, synagogue, a grocery store, a movie theater, a mall, and a nightclub,
Congresswoman,
and do nothing?
that is time.
I mean, I imagine people like their guns in Florida, but I think that's pretty effective.
Yeah, I mean, you also have a lot of shootings in Florida. I think you can, like, say you can have a right to a gun without saying, like, is AR-15s. Let them roll off the shelves.
Exactly. I have to say, too, Rubio does not, I mean, he always looks a little bit sickly. He doesn't seem to maintain his composure very well.
When you said Trump, he's never been the same since Trump, like, it's physical, it seems like. He feels like he's been, like, hollowed out or something.
Yeah, exactly. He does not look healthy. He looks like he was, like, literally broken. Like, sometimes, you know, it's like one of those things where, like, when people have an accident where, like, they have, like, a spine fracture and you can't quite see it, you know, in their daily life, but there's something about them that it looks like Trump took him and broke his spine. And I don't want to imply that he had a spine before then. I'm just saying.
Yeah.